Today I am going to be working on a 2001 Jeep Cherokee XJ. This Jeep does have a 0331 head swap. It has not been finished all the way. My dad had worked on it quite a years back, but he just never finished it. So I'm going to be finishing it here today. For those of you that don't know, the 2001 Jeep Cherokee, they did change the design of the head, and it has a flaw in it. No matter what you do, you try to take care of it, it will overheat and crack the head. You got to get the heads from the older Jeeps. This one has a head from a 98. On the exhaust side of things, the ports just do not match up. If you try to put the 2001 header and catalytic converters on it, it will not work. You're going to have a big exhaust leak. So my dad tried to put a 98 exhaust manifold and just try to rig it up, and it only has 2 O2 sensors, and the 2001 has 4 O2 sensors. And it's not like we're on HP tuner or anything like that to change any of this on up. So I'm going to be making everything run as it should, like if it was stock. My dad has already taken care of the head side of things. You know, it's running correctly, and he made his own little ghetto brackets here that are holding up the coil pack. He just did not finish up the exhaust side of things here, so I'm going to be finishing that on up. So once I finish, everything is going to be running smoothly. So in order to go ahead and take care of this on the exhaust side, I'm going to have to take off the intake manifold to get to the exhaust manifold here. First thing I'm going to do is take off the intake tubing. Now just start disconnecting plugs and any hoses that you might see on the intake manifold itself. Everything is disconnected on the intake side. Now I have to take off the power steering pump because it is connected to the intake manifold itself. I'm gonna relieve some of the tension off of the belt here. Now that is disconnected from the intake manifold. Gonna start undoing the main bolts to take off the manifold itself. Intake manifold is completely off. Got it right on over here. Now you can see here that the older header is on here with like a little mid pipe there, and so all of that needs to come right on off. So I'm going to take off the bolts right there on the flange, and then we'll start loosening the bolts for the exhaust. I went ahead and took off this little section pipe that my dad had made. Just took that right on off. Had to melt those bolts off there. As you can see, just melted those heads off of them. And so now the pipe is free there. It looks like he did make that little O2 bung on there, so I'm gonna have to get that fixed as well. But the main thing is that this has been taken off. Now that everything is off, we can start putting the correct parts back on. In order to make this head swap properly work, you're going to need to still use the 2000 and 2001 headers. Here's the old gasket from the older headers from the 98, and as you guys can see, I did purchase another gasket for it, which is right here. There's the part number for the one I'm using, MS16120. And then you do have to purchase the 2000 and 2001 gasket. Part number for the gasket I'm using MS16315. And this is where the issue comes, because you can't put the 2000 and 2001 headers on it, because you see there's a difference and you're going to have an exhaust leak coming at the headers. In order to fix this exhaust leak issue, you do have to purchase an adapter plate. Here is the adapter plate I had purchased. I'm going to put a link to it down below in the description box. Basically, it has ports on there and it's just going to be able to block off the exhaust leak with the old gasket on there, and then you're going to put the new gasket 2000 2001 and then attach the headers onto there. And that's pretty much simply how you're going to make it all work together and not have an issue with the head swap. It does as well come with some instructions, all with torque specs that you should need, and torque sequences, that how it should be done, and how to do the head swap itself. So this is a great product. This ran me about $120 if you guys want to go ahead and check this out to complete your swap. He does as well sell the coil brackets. I'm going to get started on this and install it onto the head, into the engine bay, and start making some progress on it. As you guys can tell, it's going to be blocking out those exhaust ports and allow everything to run smoothly. So now let me just go ahead and put the exhaust manifolds on here. I have the adapter plate on here, have the 01 headers on here now. And I did have to go ahead and buy the catalytic converters. The ones that had previous were just not usable. So I did purchase these. It did also come with the seal for that lower pipe, and then I did have to purchase these O2 sensors because I couldn't find any that we had from previous. Let me go ahead and get started on this. So the O2 sensors are all put on. I got to figure out the plugs a little bit later, but I need to go ahead and throw it on the intake, so we're almost there to finishing up and getting a first start. So let me throw that right on here. It looks like my dad had added in some O2 sensor plugs, trying to make it run on 2 O2 sensors instead of 4. I'm not sure exactly what he was doing here, but I need to go ahead and take this off. Alright, and then there's that. Took both of these out, and then the wires here, then I'm going to just tape them on up. Everything is taped up for the O2 sensors, and just need to plug these right on in. And shouldn't have any issues or extra, obviously any extra wires hanging off here. Alright guys, so I had shown you the sequence and the torque specs for putting on the exhaust manifold and intake manifold. I did have quite a bit of an issue. It's just a pain. Again, it's my first time taking one off and putting one back on. As far as for putting everything back on, put on the exhaust manifold and loosely put on the catalytic converter, then put on the intake manifold, get the bolt started. The reason why you're leaving everything kind of loose is because it's a 2-piece exhaust manifold, so sometimes some of the bolts might not fit up if you tighten everything all the way. If you tighten up the catalytic converter, that kind of locks everything into place as far as for the exhaust manifold. So leave that loose, get the bolts started, tighten it on up, the intake manifold and exhaust. If you want to go ahead, plug everything on in, that's cool, go ahead, do that, and then tighten up your catalytic converter, and you shouldn't have any issues. But the hardest part is getting those bolts that go in the bottom here, just because there's not too much space and you can't really see. I kept going up and down on this car, kind of got annoying. Another thing that I had an issue with, I think it's because the catalytic converter is aftermarket. Right here where it meets up with the exhaust piping and the catalytic converter is not perfect, so I am going to have to take this to an exhaust shop, just kind of chop that off, put it on, and then just put a new little pipe right there. Also got to get rid of that O2 sensor that my dad put on there that is not necessary. So that's pretty much the only thing I got to do is the intake and fix that exhaust piping, and I just haven't put in the intake just because I do want to wash this on up. I have already started it and I let my dad drive it. He was pretty happy that it was running. Let me give you guys a startup. I have not started it this morning, so it's going to be a cold start, and it is pretty loud just because that pipe is not connected yet. Alright, so there it was, man. So everything runs real nice, as you can tell, running on all cylinders, very smooth. Just got to connect that piping there. After that, just do the inspection, you know, of course change the oils and everything and get this thing back on the road. So that's the only holdup it was having. I know my dad is going to see this video, so there you have it. All you needed is the adapter plate. You needed 2 gaskets, the 01 header with the catalytic converter to just make everything run properly. But that's really what I pride myself in doing, is doing everything proper and without a budget. You know, sometimes you just got to go to work, get that bread and put it in to make it run right and to be a respectable build. Now you're definitely going to see this Cherokee in some upcoming videos, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below if you got any questions. I'm going to catch you on that next one, player.